I got my tamoko when I was 20, and the reason I got them was based on a whakatauki, which is hekai ke akuringa, which means, it's hard to translate, but it's basically like I can sustain myself with these hands. And I had been at uni for, I think, a year when I got these, or maybe 2 years, and I just had this real, like, profound sense of almost like survivor's guilt that, no one in my whānau had been to university. It was like a dream for my parents and for my grandparents and those before them. Why should I be here? Why couldn't they be here as well? Then I kind of transformed that guilt into gratitude. I wanted these to be on my hands, which is like something that people see when they meet me, and it's something that I see every day and that I can't not see, as a reminder that I'm here because of those sacrifices, and because of those I too can provide sustenance for people who need me, and I too can provide care for other people in a different way. Okay. All right. So I guess where I'll start, because I've been privileged enough to be able to tell my story, there have been things that have happened in my life that some people are like, oh, that's so sad. I tell my story because it shaped who I am, but I don't tell it in a way that says, I've been through all these things and now I'm in this great place in my life, and if I can do this, anyone can do this. It's not like that at all. I've learnt that my story is not that uncommon, and actually there are lots of young people, lots of young Māori people, lots of young women who share similar stories to my life story. It was a bumpy start to life. My mum was leaving an abusive relationship with my dad at the time, and so we basically went straight into a women's refuge in South Auckland, and yeah, that was kind of the start of my life. But I'm so glad that I was born, and I'm so thankful for my mum, because she said that when I was born it was a real turning point in her life, and that she learned to value herself and to put herself first and her safety first, and I draw a lot of strength from her. So anyway, we moved up north into Paihia to live with my grandfather and my nana. They're deeply kind and giving people, and that shaped me a lot. And I think I'm getting quite emotional because I've just left them and I'm missing them already. But so my family, they're not interested in politics. They're actually pretty anti-institution, which is real interesting. I don't know what happened to me, but so you go from South Auckland to the far north to Christchurch. We lived in Christchurch for a bit, and then to Tokoroa, which is where I spent most of my upbringing, and has really shaped everything that I am and the person that I am today. So some things I thought were normal, and then some things I knew were not normal. I never really encountered racism growing up in Tokoroa. I thought it was normal to be Māori. I thought everyone was Polynesian of some kind. I began to kind of recognise that my parents were always working 60, 70 hours a week. Despite that, there wasn't always enough money for food. There wasn't always enough money for power sometimes. And I think that's when I kind of realised that it's wrong that people can be really honest, hard workers and still live week to week. I kind of looked around me, and although Tokoroa has all of these amazing things about it, a lot of people were poor. A lot of people grew up with that same experience. I remember raking the leaves at my neighbour's house, and he'd give me $5, and I remember there was this woman in town and I would straighten her hair and she'd give me $20, and I would just hustle because I was like, if I can make enough money, my family will be okay. And the minute I turned 15, I got a job. I worked at KFC. Through my whole time living in Tokoroa, I was just always on the hustle, because for me it was there's something better out there for my family, and I know that if I really try my best that I can help them, and that's all I've ever wanted to do, is to help them. I decided, I want to change Tokoroa. I want people to be able to reach their full potential no matter what they want to be, and I want there to be everything they need to thrive, to be right here in their hometown. was like, okay, who has power in this country? Well, of course it's politicians. And so I was like, well, the beehive's in Wellington. So of course anyone that wants to make change lives in Wellington. So I decided to come down here, and it was really scary because it's like 400 kilometers away from home. Nobody I knew was going to Victoria University, but I just thought, I've just got to do this. Like, this is where I have to be. And so I moved down here, and it really, changed my life. It was the first time I realized I'm an other. I thought I was normal, but I came down here, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm one of 5 Māori in my hall of 300. I thought I knew like rich and poor from Tokoroa, and then I was like in Wellington, and you had like the people in your hall and like their dad's like the boss of like ANZ. It was a real culture shock. And I think the best thing that Wellington ever did for me, and the reason that it will always have a special place in my heart, is that it told me like I need to know who I am, because I never had to confront not knowing a lot about who I am, because obviously like my mum left my dad before I was born, so I was disconnected from my entire whakapapa Māori. At uni it was an experience of like, you've got your formal education, of course, so expensive, and then you've got your informal education, and like that's when I was like learning te reo Māori. I was learning about where I was from. I was reconnecting with family members on my Māori side. I was going to protests, learning how to organise. If someone was to ask me like, what is your kind of like a defining part of your identity, it's definitely being urban and being Māori. And there's something that I've always admired about Māori living in the city, especially those like urban Māori who come into a space and who take up a lot of space with who they are, because there's the way that they look, the way that they dress, the way that they speak, the way that they interact with other people. I remember I was walking down the terrace, and there was like this like massive protest outside the Ministry of Corrections, and there was someone, Julia Whaipote, who's like one of my idols, again, urban Māori, on the megaphone yelling at Judith Collins. This is in 2016. They were just all yelling at Judith Collins, and I just was like, that's so cool. Like, I can't believe you can just organise people, go outside a ministry and like yell at the politician who's like messing up right now. And fuck John Key. People like me are not supposed to be on councils, and people like me are not supposed to have political power. Something that I notice and recognise in other people who are like Māori or Polynesian or grew up poor even, like there's this concept of like having to perform and be exceptional all the time, and that's definitely something I've felt throughout my life, is that I have to be exceptional to get the bare minimum. So I felt that I had to be exceptional to finish high school, and people kind of call it like Indigenous excellence and stuff, but I'm beginning to kind of reject that, because like people shouldn't have to be exceptional to do something as basic as get a university degree, and people shouldn't have to be exceptional to have a job that pays them decently, or to live in a city and to afford the bare minimum. So that's something that I'm kind of trying to like unpack as well. Yeah. I think it's really important to me to have friends that kind of don't look up to me, like they kind of like, oh, okay, you're just Tam. That relieves a lot of pressure to be what people want me to be or what people think I am. Like, I really appreciate having people who are just like, you might be a counsellor, but I don't actually care. Like, you can go and do this and you can go and do that. Like, I love being around people like that who are kind of just like, I don't care. I think that's really important and grounding. The other thing that I didn't mention just before and all of that too is when I was 12, I was diagnosed with lupus. So lupus is a autoimmune disorder. That was also a really formative part of my life, because I've always operated like tomorrow isn't guaranteed. There's something that I've always in the back of my brain is like, I don't want to be like lying on a hospital bed dying and being full of regret. That sounds so morbid, but like I want to feel content. I don't want to be sitting there feeling regrets. Definitely one day everything will be forgotten, and all of the moments that I stressed about or was anxious about or stewed over or felt upset by, they all pass. And like that's, I think, really important, especially as a young person with like this level of like scrutiny and pressure and attention on you. Like it's really hard learning lessons publicly, because like you're going to learn them and you're going to get like 100 different takes on what you did. That is like a lot of pressure, but at the same time, who's going to remember that in like 5 years? Me, but nobody else. Like no one else will remember that. And I think that kind of goes back to the lupus as well in a funny way, because it's like life is so important because it's so short, but life is also like not important because it is so short, and so you can't take things so seriously. The downside of doing this work is you do lose a lot of really precious time with your family. So like, because my family don't live here in Wellington, I only get to see them like once or twice a year. But like I always say to them, I'm doing this literally for you, because there are so many people out there just like you. There are kids that are growing up the way I grew up. There are mums that are literally working themselves into like physical ill health to provide for their families. I'm doing it for them. Some people are like, oh, you just really want to like, you're really ambitious, like you really want to be like the Prime Minister or something. And I'm like, no, seriously, I don't know when my time is up. Like if I was to die tomorrow, I can 100% say like I would feel really content knowing that I made the most use of my time. That's what I love about it, is it's just like, with these hands I can change the world. So yeah, that's my tā moko. And then obviously I got a whole bunch of other tattoos. Yeah. But yeah, that's the story behind my tā moko.